Okay, I am live. At least that's what it says. Let's get a mic check on that. Okay, I am live. At least that's what it says. Let's get a mic check on that. Alright, so we are in fact live. Let me get a actual audio check here. Alright, so we are in fact live. Let me get a actual audio check here. Okay, so we are good to go. I need to pull up the stream on my secondary computer. And what we are watching today is we are looking for, and by the way, yes, I am using OBS. And I do apologize if things in OBS are off. I just set up the 1600. This is the Ryzen 1600 streaming test. And I just set up the stream just like a few minutes ago. So settings may not be 100% perfect. I do want to pull up those settings for us, though. Here we go. So you can see these. So we have, I didn't change anything under general. If you go to stream, just using the YouTube default ingest server. If you go to output, we're using a video bitrate of 6,000 for this test. Using the software encoder X264, an audio bitrate of 160. And then we are outputting a resolution of 1920 by 1080 at 60 FPS, even though the base canvas is 2650 by 1440, which is my main monitor. So those are my settings for this sort of test, and I'm on probably stream for about an hour. Just playing some Grand Theft Auto here. Most notably, I'm just looking to see, and the reason I have the performance for each CPU, I'm curious to see, A, how well the 1600 handles the streaming of GTA, which is a fairly intensive game from the CPU side of things, and how well it handles both the live streaming and the gaming all at the same time. While it isn't getting everything set up, I can go ahead and load up Fraps, because we would like to see frame rates as well, even though I'm not actually that concerned about frame rates. I'll probably have to play with settings a little bit beyond the defaults as well. So bear with me. I did not. This is sort of just thrown together real quick. But I'm super curious to see how the 1600 does. To answer the question of how do you know if you need to upgrade the BIOS, if you are doing a Ryzen build, couple things there. Check out go into forums and find people that have that have already checked out the BIOS if there's a new version. I found after 0515 on my motherboard, which is the Asus X370 Prime, I found that going to, I think it was 06, 05 or something like that, the memory compatibility changed a little bit to the point where I couldn't get it to post at 2933 like I could at 0515. So I actually backtracked. So just sort of check out the BIOS and see if things seem to be working well. And then I would, though, stay on top of BIOS updates on Ryzen, because they have been giving more performance, more stability, and that sort of thing. We have a firewall alert. Sure, we'll allow access. And I do want to go ahead and, here in a minute, just go through, once we get loaded up here, I do want to go through the settings. And I'm probably just going to be using basically the default settings that they give me. Now, this is a GTX 970, so this is not going to be like the best system of all time that we're running on from a graphics card perspective. Usually I have a 1070, and I can basically max out all the settings here. So 75 hertz, very light on the anti-aliasing. Most settings are set at very high by default. I'm not going to change those. And here is a quick look at the advanced graphics. Video buffer is 4,095 megabytes. However, we also know with the GTX 970, half a gigabyte is sort of lower speed. So let's go ahead and just hop on in game and see how this thing does. Good question. I'm not using the stock cooler. I am using the H100 V2 right now. And I did a quick overview of the of my temperatures and that sort of thing in one of my last videos, my overclocking 1600 video. However, I am going to do a video on overclocking on the stock cooler because that's another thing I'm extremely curious about. Because I speculated in a couple videos ago that the 1600 would do just fine on the stock cooler overclocking. So I'm very curious to see if that holds true. Let me turn on my controller. I do not like driving in this game without a God, that music is annoying. Come on. Come on. Do it this way. Here we go. Okay. Away we go. And I do have the stream open on a separate computer beside me, so honestly, I should have pulled up the AI suite also to see, just sort of monitor temperatures. But I'm not too worried about it with temperatures because the H100, when I was doing my stress testing, capped out at something really quite low, like 65 was where it stabilized. So I'm not actually concerned that much about temperatures. Especially if you look at my cores, they're all working. All the threads are working, but they're not maxed out by any means. They're just working. And my frame rates are in the 30s. Okay. How much can you overclock with the stock cooler? Speculation purely, but apparently Ryzen really seems sensitive to temperatures. So I'm going to guess you could still get 3.8 out of it. Just based on my temperatures are not high. And I understand that my cooling solution is overkill for sure. But my temperatures are certainly not high. So I would expect 3.8 with a stock cooler. And my hope is to get that testing underway either tonight or tomorrow with a video out this weekend or early next week taking a look at just that. Okay, let's start blowing things up. Sticky bombs, my favorite. Goodbye. Now, I will say this, and this is sort of anecdotal because I don't have the 1070 in here, but I will say that, and it's largely, I'm sure, because, or at least partially responsible for, or from the stream going at the same time, but it's not as buttery smooth right now as I definitely experienced on the 1070. But again, since I don't have my 1070 in here, it's also kind of hard to tell if it's just because I am streaming or if it also has more to do with the graphics card and the settings being a little bit different. So I'll probably drop settings down a little bit to see if I can. Here in a bit, I'll probably drop the graphics settings to see if it's more graphics card responsible for that, or if it's the actual processor just being worked really hard. Because the processor is right now being used over 60%, pretty much across the board on all 12 threads. Yeah, that's sort of what I was thinking too. It's not the smoothest in game, and the stream doesn't look all that smooth either. But, and this is where I'm going to adjust my stream settings because, again, 1080-60 is sort of really pushing it. And I will also tell you right now I have 0 dropped frames according to OBS. Take that for what it's worth. So let's drop the bit rate to about 4,000. Output's active. I can't change that. That's obnoxious. Okay, there's going to be a slight, brief break in the stream as I change these settings. So bear with me on that. Be right back. Okay, I am back, and for reference, I dropped it to 1080 30 FPS, is where the stream is now. So we get a, so we just check that out. Okay, we need to go to an airport soon. Goodbye. For a mid-range build, honestly, I would still go 1600 because that's a bank on, unless you're wanting to upgrade in the not too distant future, I feel like you're not paying much extra money for 2 extra cores, and I really do think that games are going to start taking more advantage of more threads and more cores with, hopefully, if AMD gets some traction with market share. I feel like the extra cores will come in handy, and you're not really paying much of a premium for them. So honestly, I would take the extra cores and threads, especially because the 1600, at least in the tests I've seen, do actually outperform the 1500Xs. It's not like it's an apples. It's not like it's a perfect one-to-one. You're still going to get a performance gain now with it, but I feel like the performance gain down the road may even be bigger. So I would kind of go that way. Okay. I will say that if you notice, my frame rates are way up from where they were earlier in the stream. Like I'm in the CPU usage is down, but very slightly, and my frame rates are, and maybe it's just because the area of the city I'm in, are in the low 50s now as opposed to the mid 30s. So there does seem to be something to dropping down settings a little bit in your stream to 1080 30 instead of the 60. Which 1920 1080 60 was a little bit ambitious to begin with. Oh, I got stuck. Oh, I may be dead. Oh gosh. I'm so gonna die here. On the bright side, I kind of blocked him. And they just popped my tire. Right now it's running at 4,000. Is the bit rate anyways. Mid-range, I would go RX 480. Maybe wait for the 580s, which should be coming very shortly. But honestly, you couldn't go wrong with a 1060 either, for that matter. I think the 480s are aging better than the 1060s because of driver development, that sort of thing. And I actually expect the 580s to be obviously more mature off the get-go than were the 480s, just because it's not a brand new architecture this time around for them. But one of those two, I think, is a really good value. If you're a 1080p gamer, then they will be phenomenal. If you go into 1440, you might want to start looking a little bit more like a 1070. But even the 480, depending on your game, you could do some 1440p gaming with a 480 or a 1060. It's just maybe not going to be on the absolute max settings. My GPU in this build, by the way, is a 970. Um, this is purely my secondary build. My main build, I just didn't feel like pulling out the 1070 and moving it over. So this is purely just a secondary build. Look, if I had a 1080 Ti or a Titan to stream, I'd be totally doing it. Your GPU is going to have less to do with the streaming quality unless, well, even if you're using NVENC, the NVIDIA hardware encoder, it's still not going to overly tax the GPU. The NVIDIA encoder has been available since the 600 series. And that doesn't, it does affect your FPS a little bit. It does affect performance in game a little bit still, but it's not a lot. It's just not quite, usually it's just not quite as high quality as the X264 encoder. And ditto for Intel QuickSync. There's been a bunch of videos on that, but essentially the best quality you can get is X264 if your system can handle it. Actually, Linus did a great video on that I would encourage everyone to check out. But he used the 1800X. See, the Ryzen 1600 with a B350 board and some RAM is such a phenomenal value. And honestly, for streaming from the even from different systems, but streaming from the same system, I mean, realistically, you're probably not going to be streaming at 1080 if you're playing like intensive games. You're probably going to be streaming at 720. Okay, let's land this thing and grab one of these limos. Oh shoot! Oh, I just busted everything. My plane blew up! Oh, that was good. Okay, do we have... a car nearby? We do not. Can I drive this thing? I cannot drive that thing. Come on, steal this cop car. Actually, I'm not. I'm just gonna start blowing cop cars up. Because I really want this plane. need to stop messing around with. I'm gonna die. Oh, I'm gonna die. Oh gosh, get in here. Alright, oh. Oh, hello. My settings are, for the game itself, are running at mostly very highs with not a whole lot of anti-aliasing at 1440p. And then the stream settings are 4000 is my bit rate at 1080p, 30 FPS. You could definitely lower those settings or play with the resolutions a little bit and get some better performance out of this processor than I'm getting right now. Although looking at the overall result of things, and considering the type of game that I'm playing, like it's choppy. It's definitely a little bit choppy. So you can sort of take that for what you will. You could get a little bit smoother of an effect with it, though, I believe. So let's... Okay, so now I'm going to, real quick, I'm going to alter my settings again to see what we can get out of it. So stream's going to be interrupted again. Sorry about that. Be right back. Okay, and my new settings are 3000 bit rate with 720p 30. And this is to get more of a, what I think is a more realistic use case for a game like this. Now, if you're doing a lighter game like League of Legends or something, you could definitely push it a lot harder. But this is what I believe is more of a realistic use case for streaming with a 1600. Because keep in mind, we're not talking about a top-end CPU. We're talking about a $220 part. And looking at the stream, it's definitely a lot more of a smooth effect than it was. And this is only 720p 30, but point remains. Now let's steal a car. Let's steal a taxi cab, actually. Okay, here we go. Ah, cops are shooting at me. Ooh. Oh boy. There's an ambulance there. I should have just seen that. So I think we sort of found the area that you should be streaming a game like this. Do note, CPU usage is around 50% now. It's about 10% lower than it was a bit ago. Oh, this is someone that's gotten hit. Oh, and he's gone. I guess I'm still driving to the airport again. I don't know why I always drive to the airport. I'm gonna take a ramp though. Ramp this thing. All right, there's a ramp. No one actually plays GTA. I mean, unless you're talking about Absolute Singularity, in which case you're mostly right, at least from the sounds of things. This whole slow motion effect's pretty boss. Let's speed that up, and I should be on the roof now. Look at that. Ooh, go, 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 go. Oh, someone left their car unlocked. That's boss. And away we go. Ha ha! I got away clean. 970 or RX 480, to be 100% honest, I do not know. I feel like I like the 480s. If you're getting the 8 gig version, I like the RAM buff or the frame buffer better by a lot. I like having the 8 gigs. So if it were me, I'd still recommend it over the 970. That being said, they're probably very, very close in most titles. So I'm actually super happy with the way it performs. This right now performs at 720p like that. I'm very, very pleased with this. Let's take a fly and go through some bridges. And see, streaming is one of those things where these extra cores and threads just super come in handy compared to the i5s. Woo-hoo-hoo. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of happy about that bridge. I thought I was dead there. I just lost a wing. Okay. the white vehicle. If anyone out there hasn't watched the Jay's 2 Cents streaming video that he did on the I think it was an 1800X was what he was testing. That was a really good streaming video test too. That and the Linus one are the two best ones I've seen. This sort of do something similar to this. For those of you that just joined, I'm currently running at 720p. Obviously, if you check your YouTube settings, you'll know that it's outputting at 720p right now. My bitrate is 3000. 1080p was choppy, but this is much smoother than it was. So now I'm just actually enjoying playing and streaming all at once. So that's it. In my mind, the 1600 gives a really nice experience at 720p, even for demanding games. And I imagine at lower demanding games like League of Legends, your esports types games, those you could probably get away with more of a 1080p approach. But these more demanding games, 720p is still very, very smooth looking, at least on my end, to the point where it's not going to drive viewers away, I don't think, based on just the smoothness that I'm seeing alone. Ooh, here's a car. I want this car. Also want to point out that I've had 0 dropped frames, which shouldn't be surprising, but worth pointing out anyway. Woo. That's seriously just a mess. Oh, I blew myself up. Yeah, I do have an 1800X, and I have done a streaming test with it, and I'm working on benchmarks right now, like actual benchmarks. So, I may do another, like more of a GTA head-to-head comparison. It's not really what my interest is in right now. Right now, my bigger interest is in overclocking. So that'll probably come just down the road a little bit more, where I can actually pull up the footage from this and do it more of a head-to-head. So we'll try it eventually, just not right now. Okay, one last car chase for this stream, and then we'll call it. Dude, I want to drive this car. Don't wreck it. Normally, you're right. In gaming, it wouldn't. In streaming, In the stream use case, the extra cores will make a difference. And in the future, it's possible the cores will make a difference in gaming. Right now, for the most part, the extra cores don't make much difference in the vast majority of games. But that could be changing, hopefully. For those of us that have these 8-core and 6-core parts now, we kind of hope that changes. But it's kind of lucky. Oh, tough break. Oh, they are gonna kill me if I don't watch it. Here we go. Oh, crud. Fail. Fail. I have a hard time finding me amongst all these. I actually don't have the 47. It was a 4790K. I don't have that anymore. The resolution I'm playing out is 1440p. So that's also worth taking into account. But I am playing at 1440. Oh, you gotta be kidding. Wow. They are looking for me. Yeah, normally when I'm running my 1070, I get like 60s, 70s in there. Um, and my monitor is a 75 hertz monitor, so I can't really I don't see a benefit from going above that. RAM speed wise, the 1600 with the Corsair 16 gig 3000 kit of LPX, I could not get running that fast. With my 1800X though, I did not have any issues whatsoever with my G Skill Trident Z 3000 kit. So it's definitely from what I gather, the Samsung memory modules that the Trident Z uses, and apparently Corsair doesn't for the LPX, it looks like Ryzen really likes the Samsung modules, and also it looks like the actual processor itself has a lot to do with it, from processor to processor, whether you're going to be able to hit those higher RAM speeds or not. Um, a little bit of it seems to be the luck of the draw. So there may be a little bit of a dual thing going on there. There are a lot of abandoned cop cars here. I'm just going to take one now. Bingo! All right, with that great Molotov, BIOS issue-wise, I'm going to go ahead and hop out of game now. And sort of give some wrap-up thoughts here. BIOS issues. Yes, there are, and there are on every manufacturer. It's not there's no one manufacturer that has the silver bullet right now as far as the BIOS goes. I have found with the Asus BIOS 0515, which is for the X370, the Prime Pro. 0515 works really well. It seems to be quite stable, and memory-wise, there seems to be good speed compatibility with getting the upper clock speeds, at least up to the 3000 kits. I have not gone above that, but I also don't have a kit that's rated above that. So at least in my experience, it's been pretty solid with my Trident Z. A little bit less successful with the Corsair LPX RAM. Yeah, CS:GO would run better. I am pretty satisfied right now, especially after the 720p results. I'm pretty satisfied with the way that the 1600 runs GTA. Obviously, I was hoping that you could get a little bit better result at 1080p rather. Wasn't quite able to really get that smoothed out. With some tweaks, you may be able to get it a little bit smoother than I had it. If you play with settings and that sort of thing, I obviously was not quite able to do that. But I think it was overall a pretty, so as far as the test goes, a pretty good, successful little test. 720p, even in CPU-intensive games, looks like it's good to go there. And lower end games, your esports games like CS:GO, your MOBAs, those will run a lot better at higher resolutions. So that's exciting for anybody that's a streamer. I really like this value here because no, you're not going to get the gaming performance you would out of an i5, especially if you have a K SKU that you've overclocked. But you get the 1600 at a little bit cheaper than a K SKU of the i5s, unless you're going to Micro Center, in which case, when I was there, we were seeing the i5 7600K at $200 even. But the value, you still get good gaming performance. It's not, Intel i5 range all the time. But usually it is very close. In the benchmarks I've seen, it actually does get very close. And sometimes it trades blows back and forth. But I do think the 1600 will give you a better streaming quality than would the i5s. Now, if you are really interested in and you want to play these CPU intensive games, but you still want to stream at your 1080p, at that point, unless you're having a really like high-end processor like your 1700s, or an Intel equivalent with that many cores, then you may be more relegated to working with hardware encoders like NVIDIA's solution for their GTX line, or maybe Intel QuickSync if you have an Intel processor. So there are alternatives that you can turn to if you want those higher resolutions. But if you want to stick with X264, then the Ryzen line is great for the streamer gamer combo, and there are a lot of streamer gamer combos. So 3.6 gigahertz for the 1600. Mine's running at 3.9 at 1.4 volts. So I think there's definitely more room in the tank if you only get, if you're only, even with the stock cooler, I'd be surprised if you cap out around 3.6. I think with the 1600, 3.8, if you're on a stock cooler, is probably a reasonable target for most. And if you're on an AIO water cooler, I could probably get 4 gigahertz out of this processor. I just don't want to push the voltage any higher because, frankly, after I'm done with all my testing with it, it's going to be living in my living room as my living room PC. It'll do some gaming. It probably won't ever really do streaming again. It won't be doing workstation type tasks. It'll be gaming and watching Netflix machine. But it will do a great job of that. I have full confidence in that. And I also don't view the extra 50 megahertz. It's actually 3.95 gigahertz. So I'm not too concerned about getting it clear to 4.0. Yeah, the turbo on the Ryzen processors, they're annoying. The turbo, a little bit annoying anyways, because as soon as you overclock them in any way, then you're turning all your turbo and all that good stuff off. So you're going to lose XFR, which if you have an X SKU that would give you an XFR single thread of over 4 gigahertz or right around 4 gigahertz, then you might miss that a little bit, to be honest. Okay, folks. Well, I'm going to go ahead and hop out of here. It has been fun. I do appreciate everybody that dropped in to check out the stream. I do encourage you to check out all my other videos that I have out there that are a little bit more of a production value to them. All my follows and all that good stuff. You're at Hoosier Hardware. Tweet me. Instagram ditto at Hoosier Hardware. I really appreciate everybody that popped in. Looks like we had a pretty good showing. For me, 22 concurrent viewers is what I'm showing, 21, somewhere in there. That is really good for me. So I appreciate everybody that popped in. Thanks for following along, and have a great Friday. Go out and have some fun. If you're in Indiana, it's beautiful. So go have some fun, and I will catch you guys in the next video.